It all started during what was supposed to be a cheerful, family-style livestream from Frost Bistro, a night that quickly turned into one of the most chaotic and humiliating scenes reality fans have ever witnessed. Rasheeda's mother, Miss Charlene, was sitting across from Kirk Frost, trying to keep her composure as cameras rolled and fans flooded the chat with heart emojis and love for the couple. But that love didn't last long. Within minutes, the energy shifted. Something in Kirk's tone, a casual remark he thought would slide, set off a storm that no one saw coming. You talk a big game for someone who's been living off Rasheeda's hustle. Miss Charlene snapped, leaning forward so close that even the mic picked up her heavy breathing. The comment froze the room. Rasheeda's smile faltered. The chat went wild, and Kirk sat there blinking, unsure whether to defend himself or keep calm for the sake of the camera. What happened next sent social media into meltdown. Miss Charlene didn't stop at one jab. She unleashed years of frustration, calling out Kirk for acting like a boss when it's Rasheeda who built the empire. The crowd at the restaurant, who had been laughing seconds earlier, fell silent. Even the live band stopped playing. Fans watching from home couldn't believe what they were seeing. "This is uncomfortable," one viewer commented. Another wrote, "Miss Charlene said what we've all been thinking." Within an hour, hashtags like #Team Charlene and #Kirk Exposed were trending. Rasheeda tried to intervene, her voice trembling as she said, "Mama, please, not here." But the tension was already past the point of no return. Kirk's jaw tightened, his hands folded, and he muttered under his breath, "I'm done with this disrespect." Miss Charlene laughed sharply, replying, "You were done the minute you disrespected my daughter." The line hit like a slap, sharp, public, and final. Even the cameraman hesitated, unsure whether to cut the stream or keep rolling. By the end of the night, clips of the confrontation had spread across every gossip blog. Fans replayed the moment frame by frame, analyzing Rasheeda's expression, Kirk's silence, and Miss Charlene's unapologetic glare. Some viewers called it justice. Others said it was family business gone too far. But one thing was clear. The Frost family's polished image had cracked live on camera. And everyone wanted to know what would happen next. Would Kirk walk away again? Would Rasheeda defend him or her mother? And how did something meant to show unity turn into the most humiliating moment of Kirk Frost's public life? The answers to those questions would only come with time, but that night, the internet was left buzzing, hearts pounding, and fans asking the same question. How did it all spiral this fast? Rasheeda sat frozen at the edge of the table, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had turned white, while Kirk tried to force a smile that no longer fit the situation. Miss Charlene wasn't backing down. Her voice, sharp and raw, sliced through the awkward silence that hung over the room like smoke. "You've embarrassed my daughter one too many times," she said, pointing straight at Kirk. "And now you want to sit here and act like everything's fine for these cameras." Kirk blinked, his eyes narrowing, his pride clashing with the humiliation burning inside him. "I'm not here for drama," he muttered, his tone low but steady. "I'm here to celebrate with my family." Rasheeda glanced toward the crew, silently begging them to cut the feed. But it was too late. The livestream was still rolling. Thousands of viewers watching every twitch, every breath, every unspoken word. Miss Charlene leaned back, her arms folded. "Family," she repeated, laughing bitterly. "You call this family after all the mess you've put her through?" The comment made Kirk shift in his seat. Rasheeda's heart pounded. She could hear the faint buzz of the livestream chat exploding with reactions. "Y'all see this?" One fan typed. Miss Charlene finally said it. Another chimed in. "This is wild. Rasheeda's mama not holding back." Kirk's patience was wearing thin, but the cameras kept him boxed in. "Look," he said, his voice trembling between anger and control. "I know you got love for your daughter, and I respect that, but you're not gonna keep disrespecting me like this. Not tonight." That sentence only fueled the fire. Miss Charlene slammed her hand on the table, making the glasses rattle. "Respect," she shot back. "Respect is earned, Kirk. And last I checked, you lost that when you humiliated her in front of the whole world." The mention of his past mistakes sent a wave of tension through the restaurant. Rasheeda felt her stomach tighten. She had tried so hard to move forward, to rebuild her life and her image. But here it was all being ripped open again, live for the public to witness. The staff had stopped pretending to clean or serve. Everyone was frozen, eyes darting between Kirk and Charlene. "Mama, please," Rasheeda whispered, her voice breaking. "Let's not do this here." But Miss Charlene was on a roll. "No, baby, somebody has to say it," she replied, keeping her gaze locked on Kirk. "This man made you cry more times than I can count. And every time, you put on a brave face for these people. For what? For business. For him. Kirk's face flushed, his nostrils flaring. You think I don't know what I did wrong? He shot back. I've been trying to fix it. I've been showing up, working, doing right by her, by our kids. But you can't let go of the past long enough to see that. Miss Shirley's laughter was bitter and cold. Doing right? You think posting a few pictures together and smiling for the cameras makes it right? You can't Photoshop integrity, Kirk. The crowd gasped softly, and Kirk's jaw tightened again. Rasheeda reached across the table, touching her mother's hand. Mama, stop, she pleaded. You're hurting me. Miss Shirley's expression softened for a moment, but only a moment. Baby, I love you. But he needs to hear it. The tension was suffocating. Kirk rubbed his temples, trying to hold it together. You want to talk about humiliation? He said finally, his tone darkening. You're doing this live, in front of everybody. What does that say about you? The comment stung. Miss Shirley froze, eyes narrowing, her pride refusing to bend. It says I'm tired of pretending everything's fine, she replied. It says I'm done watching my daughter carry the weight of a man who keeps letting her down. The audience watching from home flooded the comment section again. This is insane. Kirk better walk away before it gets worse. This feels too real. Rasheeda covered her face for a moment, her voice muffled as she said, Y'all are making it worse. Kirk stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You know what? I don't need this, he said, but as he turned to leave, Miss Shirley's voice cut through the noise one last time. Yeah, just like you always do, walk away when it gets real. The line hung in the air, sharp and final. Kirk froze mid-step, his back to the camera, his fists clenched, his breathing heavy. Everyone held their breath, waiting for what he'd do next. For a long moment, Kirk didn't move. Then he turned around slowly, his expression unreadable. You want to talk real? He said, voice low and shaky. Fine, let's talk real. I made mistakes, yeah, big ones. But I never stopped loving Rasheeda. I never stopped fighting for this family, even when people like you wanted to see it fall apart. Miss Shirley shook her head. You call what you did fighting? You call that love? Kirk stepped closer to the table, his voice rising. Yeah, I do. Because I didn't leave. I didn't give up when everybody told me to. I stayed, even when I knew people like you would never forgive me. The restaurant was silent. Even the live viewers could feel the electricity between them. Rasheeda looked between her husband and her mother, tears welling up. Stop, she whispered again. Please, stop. But neither listened. Miss Shirley stood now too, her face only inches from Kirk's. Staying ain't the same as changing, she said. You can stay in a house and still be the reason it's falling apart. Kirk's face twisted with pain and pride all at once. You don't know what goes on between me and your daughter, he snapped. You think you do, but you don't. I know enough, Shirley fired back. I know she deserves peace, and you bring storms. Rasheeda's voice cracked as she said, Mama, please, you're crossing a line. The chat went wild again. Oh my God, this is like a whole movie. One fan wrote, somebody needs to check on Rasheeda, said another. Kirk took a deep breath, glancing around at the watching faces, the camera lights, the phones recording. Y'all want to see the truth? He said suddenly. Fine. The truth is, I messed up, but I'm not the only one. This family's been broken for a long time, and everybody plays a part. The words landed heavy. Miss Shirley's mouth opened, but no words came out. Rasheeda looked at Kirk in disbelief. What are you saying? She asked softly. Kirk sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I'm saying this ain't just about me. Your mom's been interfering in our marriage for years, making it harder for us to heal. Shirley's eyes widened in outrage. Interfering? I was protecting my child. Kirk stepped forward. Protecting. Or controlling. That single word controlling shifted the entire tone. Fans. Online began choosing sides in real time. He's not wrong, some commented, but not on camera. Others scolded. Miss Shirley's lips trembled. You got a lot of nerve, she said quietly. You got the nerve to stand here and talk about control when you've been the reason for her tears. Kirk's voice lowered. And you've been the reason she can't forgive me. The room fell still. Rasheeda couldn't breathe. The man she'd fought to forgive and the woman who'd raised her were tearing each other apart in front of the entire world. And she couldn't stop it. Her voice cracked as she said, This isn't love. This is pain. But her words barely reached them. The camera zoomed slightly, catching the exact moment Kirk and Miss Shirley stared each other down, neither backing away. You think this makes you look strong? Kirk asked finally. You think embarrassing me makes you right? Shirley lifted her chin. No, she said. It makes me honest. The chat went crazy again. She said, this is the rawest live ever. The tension reached its breaking point when Kirk's voice dropped to almost a whisper. Then be honest, Miss Shirlene. Tell the people how much you hate me. Tell them how you never wanted your daughter to marry me in the first place. The accusation stunned the room. Rasheeda's eyes widened. Kirk, don't, she warned. But the damage was done. Miss Shirlene exhaled sharply, her face reddening. You're right, she said slowly. I didn't want her to marry you. I saw this coming. I saw every tear, every lie, every time you'd put your pride before your family. And you proved me right. Kirk swallowed hard, his composure crumbling. And maybe you're right, he admitted, his voice breaking for the first time. But what now? You want to keep proving it until there's nothing left to fix. Miss Shirlene's silence was heavy. Rasheeda wiped her tears, whispering, this isn't what family's supposed to be. The live stream chat slowed as viewers sensed the gravity of the moment. The shouting had stopped. The energy shifted. Kirk looked at Rasheeda and said quietly, you wanted the truth, there it is. Your mom hates me, and I can't fight for this marriage if I'm fighting her too. Miss Shirlene blinked back tears, whispering, you're not fighting me, Kirk. You're fighting the truth. The tension was no longer loud, it was quiet, painful, real. The camera captured every broken glance, every deep sigh. The Frost family had always prided themselves on resilience, but tonight, that word felt like a lie. And as the silence stretched, the chat started flooding again. This is heartbreaking. This is real pain. Is this the end for them? But no one in that room had answers. Not yet. Kirk turned away again, his voice hoarse as he said, I'm done trying to prove myself to people who'll never see me as more than my mistakes. And before Rasheeda could speak, he walked off camera, leaving behind a stunned restaurant, a trembling Rasheeda, and a mother who suddenly didn't look angry anymore, just tired. And that's exactly where the next storm began. Rasheeda sat motionless, staring at the space Kirk had just walked out of. The sound of the restaurant door closing echoing through the awkward quiet. Miss Shirlene's breathing was heavy, her eyes still fixed on the table, as if the words Kirk had thrown at her were still hanging in the air. The live stream was still running. Nobody had turned it off. The audience could feel the rawness through the screen, no filters, no edits, just a family unraveling in real time. One fan commented, someone ends the live, this is too real. While another wrote, this is what happens when pain never gets healed. Rasheeda finally spoke, her voice low and trembling. Mama, why'd you have to do that? She asked, almost whispering. You could have talked to him off camera. You could have waited. Miss Shirlene looked up, her expression torn between guilt and stubbornness. Baby, I tried waiting, she said softly. I've been holding this in for years. Every time I saw you smile through tears, I wanted to say something, but you kept protecting him. Rasheeda wiped her eyes, the mascara smudging down her cheek. And now what? She asked bitterly. Now the whole world knows our business. The same people who cheered us on are gonna tear us apart. Shirlene sighed, reaching across the table, but Rasheeda pulled her hand back. You don't get it, Mama. This was supposed to be different. We were trying to move forward. The chat flooded again, fans taking sides. Rasheeda's mom was right, one said. She went too far. Another countered. The division online mirrored the divide in the room. Miss Shirlene's face fell as she whispered, I only wanted to protect you. Rasheeda shook her head. Protect me from what? From my own marriage. You're protecting me from something I chose. The manager finally walked over and signaled to cut the live stream. One of the crew members hesitated but obeyed. The screen went dark, but the damage was already viral. Clips had already been downloaded, reposted, and dissected by thousands of viewers. Hashtags multiplied within minutes. Hashtag FrostFamiBrickton. Hashtag Mish. Hashtag Rasheeda. It was no longer a family argument, it was entertainment for the world. As the cameras powered down, Rasheeda whispered, I can't believe this. Shirlene looked around at the silent restaurant, her voice barely audible. Maybe it's time people saw the truth. 2 hours later, the internet was on fire. Gossip pages picked up the footage, editing the most heated moments with dramatic music. Rasheeda's mom drags Kirk Frost live. One headline screamed, the Frost marriage crumbles before fans' eyes. Another read, even celebrity blogs began to weigh in. Some praised Miss Shirlene for standing up for her daughter, while others called her out for humiliating Kirk. Social media was a battlefield. People posted reaction videos, dissecting every word, every expression. Meanwhile, Kirk was nowhere to be found. After walking out, he had disappeared into the night, ignoring calls and messages. Around midnight, Rasheeda sat alone in her living room, scrolling through comments she wished she hadn't read. "She's too strong to stay with him," one fan wrote. "She's blind for defending him," said another. The world had turned her private pain into public judgment. Her phone buzzed, Kirk's name flashing on the screen. For a moment she didn't answer, but curiosity won. "What do you want?" she said, her tone guarded. Kirk's voice was hoarse. "I didn't mean for it to go that way," he said quietly. I couldn't sit there while your mom kept tearing into me." Rasheeda sighed, closing her eyes. "You could have walked away sooner," she said. "You didn't have to argue back." Kirk's frustration seeped through the line. She wouldn't stop. "Ray, what was I supposed to do? Let her humiliate me in front of millions?" "You did that to yourself years ago," she said sharply before realizing how harsh it sounded. Silence stretched on both ends. Finally, Kirk said, "I'm not gonna keep being punished for the same thing forever. I've changed." "But nobody wants to see that." Rasheeda's voice softened. "Then why does it still hurt like it just happened?" Kirk sighed. "Because your mama won't let it heal." That statement hit her harder than she expected. "Don't blame her," Rasheeda said, though her tone lacked conviction. "She's just protective." Kirk's laugh was bitter. "Protective? She hates me. Always has. And now she's made sure the world does too." The next morning, the footage had reached millions of views. Fans were already creating conspiracy theories. One claimed the fight was staged for publicity. Another insisted divorce papers were already being filed. Bloggers started calling the Frost Bistro a battlefield. And paparazzi camped outside, hoping to catch a glimpse of anyone involved. Rasheeda avoided social media entirely that morning. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from producers, friends, and even fellow Love and Hip Hop cast members asking what really happened. She didn't reply to any of them. Instead, she sat on her bed, staring at an old photo of her, Kirk, and her mom smiling together at Christmas years ago. Miss Shirlene showed up around noon, knocking softly on the door. "Baby," she called. Rasheeda didn't answer. After a long pause, she opened the door anyway. "I know you're upset," she began, "but you can't stay silent forever." Rasheeda finally turned to her, eyes red from crying. "You embarrassed him, Mama. And me too." Shirlene frowned. "I embarrassed him. He embarrassed himself. I just told the truth." Rasheeda shook her head slowly. "Sometimes the truth doesn't have to be said in front of everyone." Shirlene's voice wavered. "So what? I should have kept pretending." "Yes," Rasheeda snapped. "For once, yes, pretend. Let us breathe. Let me handle my marriage." The hurt in her mother's eyes was undeniable. "I thought you were drowning, baby," she whispered. "I thought if I didn't say something, you'd lose yourself completely." Rasheeda's voice cracked. "And now, you think I'm saved? You just made it worse." Shirlene's lip trembled. "I just wanted him to be accountable." Rasheeda looked away. "You wanted him to hurt." Those words stung because they were true. Shirlene turned toward the window, watching the paparazzi outside snapping photos of her through the glass. "They're camped out like vultures," she muttered. "They'll twist everything I said." Rasheeda's tone was weary. "They already have." That evening, Kirk finally returned home. The sound of his car in the driveway sent a wave of tension through the house. Rasheeda stood by the kitchen counter while her mother folded her arms, waiting. Kirk stepped inside quietly, his eyes moving between them. "So this is what it's come to?" he asked, his voice low. "Me against both of y'all." Rasheeda's tone was tired. "Nobody's against you, Kirk. We're just trying to figure out how to move forward." Kirk shook his head. "There's no forward if your mom keeps dragging me back into the past." Shirlene shot him a cold look. "Maybe if you didn't keep repeating it, we wouldn't have to." "I'm not repeating anything," Kirk said firmly. "I've been trying to prove myself. I've been working, showing up, staying loyal. What else do you want?" "Peace," Shirlene said simply. "For my daughter." Kirk took a step closer. "Then stop bringing chaos into our house." The words landed like stones. Rasheeda's voice broke the silence. "Enough," she said. "Both of you." But her voice was drowned out by the sound of Kirk's frustration boiling over. "You think I enjoy this?" he shouted. "You think I like being the bad guy every time something goes wrong?" "If the shoe fits," Shirlene snapped. "You wore it first." Kirk let out a hollow laugh. "You can't stand the fact that she still loves me. That's what this is about." Shirlene's eyes flashed. "I can't stand the fact that she keeps forgiving you when you don't deserve it." Rasheeda slammed her hand on the counter. "Stop it," she yelled, her voice cracking. Both turned to her, startled. "You're both right, and you're both wrong. I love you, Mama. I love you, Kirk. But this fighting, this public mess, it's killing me." Her voice softened as tears streamed down her cheeks. "You both say you're doing this out of love, but love shouldn't feel like this." For a moment, neither spoke. Kirk looked down at the floor, breathing hard, while Miss Shirley's face softened with regret. The air was thick with the weight of everything said and everything left unsaid. Outside, fans continued to speculate, unaware that inside the Frost home, 3 people were trying to decide if love could survive public humiliation. And just when it seemed things couldn't get more complicated, a knock came at the door. Kirk frowned, walking over to open it, only to find a producer from Love and Hip Hop standing there with a camera crew behind him. "You ready to talk about it on camera?" the producer asked. Kirk froze, glancing back at Rasheeda and her mother. Neither said a word. The real drama was only beginning. The camera crew stepped inside, setting up lights and tripods as Kirk rubbed his forehead, clearly exhausted. Rasheeda sank onto the couch, pulling a blanket around her shoulders. Miss Shirley stood near the kitchen counter, arms folded, watching both of them with a mixture of caution and determination. The producer cleared his throat. "Okay, we want to capture the real story here. How did everything escalate last night?" "Start from the beginning." Kirk exhaled slowly, his eyes darting between the crew and Shirley. "I guess it started when Miss Shirley decided to air every grievance she had, without giving me a chance to respond properly." The producer nodded. "Go on." Kirk ran a hand through his hair, his voice low but tense. "Look, I knew there was tension. I knew we had problems, but there's a line between handling things privately and humiliating someone publicly. Last night, that line was crossed." Miss Shirley stepped forward. "And what about the fact that he's been making those mistakes for years?" she demanded, her voice shaking with suppressed anger. "How many times does Rasheeda have to forgive him before you see that this isn't just a one-time slip?" Kirk's jaw tightened. "Because you keep holding the past over us. Every time we try to move forward, it's dragged back into the spotlight. I can't fix a marriage when the foundation keeps cracking under pressure." Rasheeda covered her face, sobbing quietly. The crew hesitated, sensing the tension was too thick to force any questions. Outside, viewers online were refreshing the livestream feed, sharing snippets, and reacting in real time. The clip of Miss Shirley's "You were done the minute you disrespected my daughter" line had already gone viral, and social media erupted with opinions, memes, and reaction videos. Kirk continued, his voice calmer now, but still edged with emotion. "I tried to explain that last night, but she wasn't listening. She wanted to show the world how wrong I am, and she did. Miss Shirley's eyes filled with tears. "I wasn't showing the world, Kirk. I was showing Rasheeda the truth. She needed to hear it." Kirk's expression softened for a split second. "But there's a way to do that without turning it into a spectacle. Without putting me in the hot seat while millions watch," the producer interjected gently. "So you're saying the livestream made everything worse?" Kirk nodded. "Worse doesn't even begin to cover it. It turned private pain into public drama. It turned my mistakes into entertainment." Rasheeda wiped her face, her voice trembling. "And now I can't look at either of you without feeling hurt." Kirk's eyes softened as he looked at her. "Ray, I never wanted this for you. I've been trying to hold it together for the kids, for us, but when your mom keeps reopening wounds, it's like trying to swim upstream in a hurricane." Shirley's lips quivered. "And you think I enjoy this?" she asked quietly. "You think I want to fight my daughter's husband in front of everyone?" Kirk shook his head slowly. "I don't think you enjoy it. I think you feel justified, and in that justification, you're tearing us apart." The room was silent for a few moments. Even the crew didn't speak. Rasheeda finally whispered, "I love you both, but this is destroying me." Kirk leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I know, baby. I know it is, and I don't want to be the cause of that anymore." Miss Shirley's voice softened, her hands clasped in front of her. "I just wanted to protect you," she said. "That's all I ever wanted." Rasheeda shook her head. "Protect me? You embarrassed him in front of the world. That's not protection, that's punishment." Kirk's lips pressed together tightly. "And I felt punished. I felt like no matter what I did, nothing would ever be enough." The producer nodded, sensing the story was unfolding naturally. "So how do you move forward from here?" he asked. Kirk exhaled deeply. "Honestly, I don't know if we can," he admitted. "Not with this level of public scrutiny, not with private grudges aired for the world to see. It's like we're trapped." Miss Shirley looked down, biting her lip. "Maybe that's the point," she said softly. "Maybe we needed this. Maybe seeing it out there, raw, is what will make us finally face the reality. Rasheeda shook her head, tears streaming. Or maybe it just made everything worse. Outside, social media continued to explode. Clips were being shared across Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Influencers dissected every frame, some taking Kirk's side, others taking Miss Shirleen's. Hashtags like #FrostFamilyDrama, #RASHEEDA divided, and #Miss Shirleen exposes were trending. Fans debated endlessly. Who was right? Who was wrong? Who would walk away? Inside the house, the tension remained. Kirk stood, moving toward the door. "I need air," he muttered. Rasheeda grabbed his arm. "Please, don't go. Let's just talk," she pleaded. Kirk shook his head. "Talking won't fix this. Maybe distance will." He left the room, and Rasheeda sank back into the couch, covering her face. Miss Shirleen stepped closer to Rasheeda, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Baby, I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered. "I meant to help. I meant to show you that sometimes love isn't enough when respect is missing." Rasheeda nodded weakly, unable to speak. Outside, paparazzi snapped pictures through the windows, capturing the tense scene. The story was already out, and no one could take it back. Kirk's car pulled away, leaving the house quiet, but the silence felt heavier than any argument. Rasheeda lay back, staring at the ceiling, wondering how her family could survive public humiliation and private resentment all at once. The night had ended, but the aftermath, the social media storm, the whispers, the scrutiny, was only beginning. Hours later, Kirk returned, hesitant and tired. The house was dark except for the faint glow of the living room lamp. Rasheeda stood to greet him, her eyes swollen from crying. Kirk reached out, pulling her into a brief embrace. "We're alive," he whispered. "Barely." She chuckled faintly, a sound of sadness more than amusement. "Barely," she repeated. Shirleen watched from the doorway, silently conflicted. She wanted to intervene, but she knew the room needed time, space, and maybe silence. The world had witnessed their chaos, but within the walls of their home, they were left with the fragments of love, anger, hurt, and the question of whether they could ever be whole again. The next day, interviews, texts, and online comments continued. Fans speculated endlessly, discussing whether Kirk and Rasheeda would reconcile publicly, how Miss Shirleen's actions would affect future family appearances, and who was truly in the right. Clips from the livestream were replayed millions of times. Kirk's silence on social media was interpreted as guilt by some, strength by others. Miss Shirleen's lack of posts made people question whether she regretted her words or stood by them. Rasheeda stayed mostly offline, trying to shield herself from judgment, but even that was impossible. The narrative had taken on a life of its own, and she was at the center. By evening, the family had gathered for a private discussion. The cameras were gone, but the emotions were still raw. Kirk spoke first. "We need rules," he said. "No more live confrontations. No more dragging issues into public view." Shirleen nodded slowly. "I agree," she said, though her tone suggested it was more for peace than true agreement. Rasheeda, tears still in her eyes, added, "And we need to forgive. Somehow, for ourselves, for our kids, for this family." Kirk looked at her, eyes softening. "I'll try," he whispered. Miss Shirleen remained silent, the weight of her words from last night hanging over her like a shadow. It would take more than a night to repair the damage, but the first step acknowledging it had been taken. The family went to bed that night in silence, each lost in thought. Kirk replayed the confrontation in his head, wondering if he could ever regain respect. Rasheeda worried about what fans would think, how her personal life had become entertainment. Miss Shirleen wondered if she had been right or if she had gone too far. Outside, the world continued its endless scroll of comments, likes, and shares, oblivious to the private heartbreak unfolding behind closed doors. The Frost family had survived many storms, but this one, live, raw, and unfiltered, was unlike any before. The drama wasn't over. It was only evolving, shaping a narrative that millions were already invested in. One that would keep the family under the microscope for weeks, maybe months, to come. The next morning brought no relief. Kirk woke up early, restless, scrolling through his phone to see every clip, every reaction, every headline about the live stream debacle. Rasheeda was still asleep, curled under the blanket with her face buried. Miss Shirleen had already left the house, saying she needed space to think, leaving Kirk alone with his thoughts. He exhaled slowly, running his hands through his hair. The storm from the night before wasn't fading, it was growing. Trended globally, memes circulated endlessly. And everyone seemed to have an opinion about his marriage, his character, and his future with Rasheeda. Kirk tried calling Rasheeda's number, but she didn't answer. He left a message, his voice heavy with fatigue. "Ray, I know last night was bad. I don't want to fight anymore. I just want to fix this." The message hung in the ether, unanswered. He sat on the edge of the bed, thinking about every word Miss Shirlene had said. Every accusation, every glare, every humiliating jab. It all played over in his mind like a movie he couldn't turn off. He hated feeling this powerless, exposed, and misrepresented in front of millions of people who barely knew him. Hours later, Rasheeda woke up to find her phone flooded with messages and notifications. The internet had dissected her mother's words, Kirk's reactions, and even her own expressions. Fans debated whether she was siding with her mom or defending Kirk, what her facial expressions meant, and whether this fight signaled the beginning of the end of her marriage. She scrolled through screenshots, reaction videos, and gossip blogs, feeling the weight of public scrutiny pressing down on her chest. She had hoped to move past the past, but the world refused to let her. Miss Shirlene returned in the afternoon, her expression tired but resolute. She found Rasheeda sitting in the living room, phone in hand. "Baby," she said softly, "we need to talk." Rasheeda looked up, her eyes red from crying. "Talk," she echoed. "About what?" "Everything's already out there. The world already knows." Shirlene sat beside her, taking her hand. "I know, but we need to figure out what comes next. Privately. Before it gets worse." Rasheeda's voice was small. "Do you really think we can fix it? After last night?" Shirley nodded slowly. "We have to try. For you, for the kids, for this family." Kirk returned later that evening. The tension was palpable. The air in the house felt thick, like it had been stretched to its limits. He walked in, glancing at Rasheeda and her mother, both seated tensely in the living room. "Are we really doing this?" he asked, voice weary. Shirlene looked up, her eyes steady. "Yes, Kirk, we are. If we want to survive this, we have to talk honestly." Kirk sighed, sinking into the chair across from them. Rasheeda sat, silently, her gaze fixed on the floor, listening to the storm about to unfold once more, hoping it would somehow end differently this time. Kirk started. "I can admit I've made mistakes, plenty of them. But last night, it felt like a setup, like a public execution. I don't know if I can trust that won't happen again." Shirlene's lips pressed together, nodding slightly. "I wanted you to feel the weight of your actions," she said quietly. "To understand that what you've done has consequences. Not just for you, but for Rasheeda too." Rasheeda looked between them, tears brimming. "I get it," she said softly. "I understand both of you, but the public doesn't, and I can't live like this. Constantly under a microscope, constantly judged." The discussion stretched for hours, alternating between calm reasoning and sharp arguments. Kirk's frustration bubbled over at times, Miss Shirlene's voice shook with emotion, and Rasheeda oscillated between pleading for peace and voicing her hurt. It was raw, unfiltered, and exhausting. Outside, the world continued its relentless commentary. Tabloids published exclusive insights from unnamed sources. Influencers rehashed clips with dramatic narration, and memes mocked the family endlessly. The Frost household was under siege, not by enemies, but by their own personal drama made public. By nightfall, some progress had been made. Kirk admitted certain faults. Shirlene acknowledged that her approach had been extreme, and Rasheeda found a small measure of relief that at least they were speaking directly to each other, not through screens or gossip pages. Still, the tension lingered like a shadow, and everyone knew this was just the beginning. The storm hadn't ended, it had merely shifted to another form. Quieter, but no less powerful. The family needed more than words. They needed time, understanding, and perhaps a miracle to navigate the aftermath of public humiliation that had turned their private lives into entertainment. As Kirk headed to his room, Rasheeda whispered, "We'll figure this out." "Maybe." Shirlene nodded, watching both of them go, knowing that the path to healing would be long and messy. Outside, the lights of the city twinkled, indifferent to the family drama unfolding within one modest home, yet the world would not forget the livestream. The storm of opinions, memes, and commentary would continue, but inside, the Frost family faced the far harder challenge, rebuilding trust, understanding, and love in the wake of a night that had changed everything. The drama had evolved, and no one knew what the next chapter would bring. And so here we are, at the edge of it all, watching a family's private world explode into public chaos. And you, sitting there on the other side of the screen, feeling every ounce of the tension as if you were in the room with them. You've seen the tears, heard the shouts, witnessed the raw and unfiltered moments that nobody ever expected to go viral. You've watched Rasheeda struggle with love, loyalty, and heartbreak while Kirk wrestled with frustration, guilt, and his own desire for respect. Miss Shirlene, caught in the crossfire between protecting her daughter and asserting the truth as she sees it, has become a symbol of how far a parent will go when they believe they're right, even if it means humiliation and heartbreak. And while you've been watching, a question has been growing louder in your mind. What happens next? Who will give way? Who will fight harder? And who will finally realize that love and pride can't coexist in the glare of millions of eyes without leaving scars? You've seen how quickly a moment can spiral out of control. One decision, one live confrontation has shattered private walls and thrown every emotion into the spotlight. Fans, viewers, and commentators are now part of the story, dissecting every facial expression, every word, every silence. Their opinions flood in, some sympathetic, some critical, and some downright cruel. The Frost family's drama is no longer contained within the walls of their home. It has been broadcast, edited, shared, and dissected across the internet, making every misstep, every sigh, and every tear a topic of debate. And now, like the rest of the world, you're left wondering, will they survive the scrutiny? Can love endure when the foundation has been shaken so publicly? Or is this the beginning of a permanent divide that can't be bridged, no matter how much they try? This is where you come in, because every view, every comment, every share is part of the story. Your voice matters. The conversations sparked by this drama shape how the narrative evolves, influence the opinions of others, and even affect the choices of the family themselves if they ever see it. When you comment, you're not just reacting, you're participating, questioning, challenging, and empathizing with each of them. Do you think Rasheeda will forgive and rebuild? Do you side with Kirk, believing he deserves another chance? Or do you understand Miss Shirlene's perspective, feeling that some lessons must be taught, even if painfully? Your perspective could ignite discussion, inspire debate, and even change the tone of the conversation surrounding this story. Every like is more than just a click. It's a statement. It says you're engaged, invested, and paying attention to the highs and lows of human emotion at its most exposed. Every share spreads the drama further, letting more people witness the tension, the heartbreak, and the unresolved questions that hang in the air like smoke. The Frost family's story is far from over, and by interacting with it, you become part of a living, breathing saga, a narrative that grows and twists with each passing day. Social media doesn't just record history, it shapes it. And in this case, the history is being written right before your eyes. You've felt the suspense, the shock, and the heartbreak of watching a mother confront her son-in-law, a daughter torn between two worlds, and a husband who's caught between pride and love. And now, you can take that emotional energy and channel it into conversation. Leave your thoughts, express your outrage or empathy, or speculate about what might happen next. Do you see reconciliation on the horizon? Or is this the start of a permanent fracture? Do you think the family can rebuild their trust and privacy? Or is the public gaze too heavy to bear? Your insight and opinions add layers to the story, creating a dialogue that keeps the drama alive beyond the screen and beyond the live stream. As you reflect on what you've seen, remember this: no matter how dramatic or shocking the events, at the center are human beings, with flaws, emotions, and complexities that can never be fully captured in clips or headlines. What happened live on camera represents just a fragment of their reality, yet it sparks universal themes: love, betrayal, pride, protection, and forgiveness that resonate with anyone who has ever navigated family conflict or relationship turmoil. Your engagement, whether through a thoughtful comment, a reaction, or a discussion with friends, contributes to a larger understanding of human emotion, behavior, and the consequences of letting private battles become public spectacles. So take a moment, like the video if the rawness, tension, and emotion grabbed you. Share it to start conversations, challenge opinions, and watch how the story unfolds in the eyes of others. And most importantly, leave a comment. Tell us what you think will happen next. Do you believe Rasheeda and Kirk can mend their relationship? Do you see Miss Shirlene finding peace with the choices she made? Or do you think this is a turning point, the moment where love, pride, and public scrutiny collide in a way that changes everything permanently? Your perspective matters, and your voice adds depth to the ongoing saga. Stay connected, because this story isn't over. There will be new moments, new confrontations, and new revelations. And when they happen, you'll be right there, witnessing every shock, every tear, and every unexpected twist. By engaging now, you set the stage for the next chapter, ensuring your thoughts and opinions are part of the conversation that shapes how this story is remembered, discussed, and understood. Don't just watch, participate, react, and make your presence known in a story that's raw, dramatic, and evolving in real time. Remember, the Frost family's drama is more than entertainment. It's a lesson in emotion, consequences, and human complexity. And by interacting, you're part of that lesson, part of the unfolding narrative that continues to grip fans worldwide. So hit like, share the video, and leave your comment below. Tell us what you think, speculate about the next move, and let your voice become part of the story that has already captivated millions. Your engagement ensures the drama lives on, evolving, twisting, and shocking with each new development. The Frost family's story continues, and your perspective is part of it. Don't miss a moment, be heard, be seen, and let the conversation continue.